So hello once again. This is Steve Taylor, lead advisor over here at Merited Wealth, and thank you for joining us at the Do It For Yourself podcast. This is your first time listening. We really appreciate you chiming in. If you've listened before, we really appreciate that as well. What we really try to do in these podcasts is bring on business owners that are out there really doing it for themselves, right? And talk about kind of their journey and lessons learned, and in the hopes that anybody who's listening here or that comes in can get some nuggets of wisdom, okay, from our experiences. So hopefully that while you're doing it for yourself, you don't necessarily have to learn it for yourself, right? Because that's kind of the goal here with all of us. I always like saying that, but I wonder, hey, would I have listened to me if I was younger? Would I be listening to older me? We never know. But today I have a really good friend, a really great guy, kind of a unique story in the business world. And so I'll let him. I'll without hesitation, we'll jump into this. We'll get him to introduce himself. So Scott, tell us a little bit about you, and tell us a little bit about your main business, the business where you do it yourself.
Got it. Well, thanks, Steve. Appreciate you having me on. So as you heard, my name is Scott Grondin. I'm the co-founder or one of the co-founders of Adapt. It's a training facility here in North Miami. We are Miami's largest sports facility and fitness club. We pretty much have partnerships and amenities that I'll go into that fits everyone. Besides that being my main business, or maybe I'm alluding too early, but I also am a fireman. And I work for the city of Hialeah. So I kind of do a little bit of multiple things going on.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Scott. Yeah. So I remember when I first met you, you were into fitness, and I was coaching my kids basketball. If you remember, I guess it goes almost back 10 years ago now, right? And you came in with some speed and agility items, and it was really great. So where I like to start is, Adapt is business. You do it for yourself. It's your full-time job, almost in addition to your full-time job, but you've had other jobs that have taken up a lot of your time that you've had before, while also having what's considered, right, a very much a full-time job as a firefighter. Talk a little bit about that, how you started out. I mean, maybe how long you've been a firefighter, and then how you've gone about kind of doing these other businesses while having that job.
Yeah, definitely makes it unique. So yeah, I've been a firefighter for 15 years now, pretty much. I started right out of high school. So while I was in high school, I grew up around, if not entrepreneurs, at least go-getters. My dad, my brother, they always had me working since I was probably 5, I would say, doing odd and end things on the weekend. So having like a side hustle was always it was brought up in my DNA, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
And we would always be doing projects every single weekend. So while I was in high school, wanted money, needed to fix the car, take the girl out, do all the things normal kids do. And I started doing landscaping on the weekend. So I started having, a yard to cut, a tree to trim or whatever, things I had learned from my family. And, I was doing that in high school. And then they did a presentation for the fire department at my school. And I was like, you know what? That's a pretty cool job. I saw them using their hands, cutting people out of cars. And then, I learned a little bit about it, and I found out that they work one day and they're off 2. And I was like, wait, you can work 1 and be off 2, get a salary, and then, learn more and more. And I find out that most of them have second jobs or teach or do something else to build income on the side besides the fire department. And that's kind of how I got my first step into going into that career. So I knew that I was going to continue doing landscaping at that moment, and I was going to become a firefighter and kind of, live the best of both worlds, ideally.
Yeah. So how did that work? So is it, one day on, 2 days off, doing landscaping, that's, a lot of coordination, a lot of organization there, right? Getting your right people in the right jobs, working in the right places. So the early days when you're starting out, you're kind of a newbie at the fire department, working your way up, and you have this landscaping job. Kind of how did it look? How much time were you working on it when you were off at the fire department? Did you have much free time, or how did it look like those early days?
Free time is still something sometimes I battle with, but basically none. I could tell you for like the first 5 or 7 years of my career as a fireman, I worked pretty much 7 days a week, if not 6 days a week. morning, sun up to sundown. Every morning was 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I just had to like kind of learn to push through it, probably because I was so young and I didn't have much knowledge or background help in the business world or organization and whatnot. So it's if I were to start it now, it'd be such a different thing. But back then I just, took the call, went to the job, I just kept moving, falling forward is like my saying around here. And I just kept falling forward and getting it done. And I was just honest, and I would do good work, and it just kept growing from there. So luckily it worked out.
That's great. You can't ever make up for hard work. Really overcomes all shortcomings, right? When in doubt, just keep working and going through it. And so during those early days, you're falling forward, moving through it. I know you're spending a lot of time and effort. I'm wondering, were you focused much on kind of the profitability of this landscaping business? Did you understand how much money you were making there? Did you have kind of a long-term goal? Because I mean, the firefighting, that's easy, right? You have a salary, you go through promotions, you have some different benefits. What were you focusing on that landscaping business? And while you're falling forward, working your butt off, how are you kind of navigating the items of being a small business owner really for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things that I wasn't doing is I didn't have either my books in order, sufficiently, or I wasn't really doing, full profit margins on jobs. I was probably, I would just do the best I could on, pricing from what I heard from, from somebody, you live and learn. And that's kind of like how I was doing it. But on the fly of my seat, like there was no like long-term planning. There wasn't, a direction for the year. There wasn't even honestly even like annual goals. There wasn't even a 5-year plan at one point. I think mostly because I was so busy. Luckily I always had work, and it felt like it was always stacked up. But because of that, I didn't get a chance to really, develop the long-term plan for the business. And eventually that kind of is part of the reason why, that business probably maybe could have done even better than it did do, or who knows, maybe I would have grown it into a behemoth before I decided to sell it. So
Yeah. No, knowing you, Scott, one of your skills is really, generating business, right? Because of your natural personality. You're a giver. It's not very a hard sales call. Hard sales when you're working with you. So talk about that. Maybe early on when you were, you're working hard, you're falling forward, but you're getting these jobs, you're getting plenty of work. How would you go about and do that?
well, I mean, most of it was honestly word of mouth. So, luckily, like you said, and I appreciate those words, I have a tendency to at least follow through with what I'm saying, and offer the right products. And honestly, I'm honest and held to my word. So I was able to just get, word of mouth just kept generating business and generating business. So most of the time I wasn't even off one job site before I was on, already had the other job site closed and deposits received and all of it. And I had a really niche business, which was, you really can't find anyone who was in the middle where I was. Like, either they're huge monsters that charge behemoth amounts of money with landscape designers that are, true artists, or you have your, typical lawnman. So I was in the middle where I was actually able to do designs, communicate well with the client. And I think that was like the main reason why I found such growth so easy.
Yeah, Scott, I think it's amazing. It's a great lesson for anybody listening or looking to start your own business. It can really come down to as simple as do what you say that you are going to do. If something goes wrong, give them a call, explain to them something went wrong, follow through, right? I have these arguments with my kids all the time. That's one of my biggest lessons. Don't text them, don't tweet them, whatever it might be, call them, let them know what's happening. I just had to have a very uncomfortable conversation, with a new client today, but that's just how it is, right? You step forward, you make sure you do what you're going to say. If it goes wrong, you talk to them about it. You're going to tell them what you're going to do to kind of try to repair it. So now your landscaping business, you worked really hard on that, and you went and you sold that, didn't you? I mean, can you talk a little bit about, how that came to, how that the structure of that sale, came into being, and why? Why did you sell it?
Yeah, so luckily I was able to. So there's definitely a positive in there. So, the landscaping company, I would say I was probably like 7 years in. I ended up partnering and bringing somebody on during that point. And that's eventually I actually ended up selling out to. he was doing something kind of on his side and, learning the business. And I, at that point I was a little bit more advanced. So then he came on and we grew the business pretty well. The last couple of years we were together, and, it was just kind of more of like the writing on the wall, where my time was just getting pulled into so many different directions. I was starting to get into, move up in the fire department. So a little bit more responsibility there. I was getting involved in training and stuff there. And then I was also getting involved in the fitness world. That's kind of been like a pet passion of mine since, once playing sports kind of ends, the only thing that's left a little bit is the fitness training part. So I still love that. And that's obviously where it's landed me today. But I was kind of doing all three. It was getting really time commitment and, time restricted. And I needed to push forward. And so I decided that, this is the time. We looked into selling out to different groups. We looked into, other options of, what the best way to go about it. And long story short, my business partner and I came to an agreement for the sale of, the accounts, the equipment and everything that I had built and that he came into. And then of course we did help build together as well. So it was interesting navigating that. We're still friends today. Actually, I was at a wedding with him last week, so I can't say anything bad about him or anything. And he actually ended up selling the landscaping company later because it's a challenging business, working that. So and all in all, it ended up working out pretty well. I have really no complaints on it.
That's great. That's great. So you successfully left that business and you got into the business that you had the more passion, of the fitness. And that's really, I think that's a great word of advice for anybody out there who's looking to start up a business, right? Start with what you like doing, whatever you find yourself doing. If you like going to the gym, think about something that can, a career that you can build around that. So now you're still working as a firefighter, right? That's still allowing you the flexibility to build these separate businesses. You're growing up in that career. You're moving up those ladders. So now you go into the fitness business. I guess as you go into that business, right, this second business, did you think at all, okay, while I enjoy doing this, were there some lessons maybe that you brought over from the landscape business or different things into this business? Or was it once again, just fall forward, work as hard as you can and see what happens?
No, definitely this time was different. So, I had learned there was a 6-month period where I was only working, one business, basically, fire department, we'll say. And I said, oh, I'm not going to get into another business. I'm just going to do some stuff on the side, make some, a few cash. And then, sooner than later, I couldn't keep myself out and I wanted to open it up and just, grow something. But during those 6 months, I had like more time to think, I would say that's when I started becoming a little bit more strategic. I'm still a fall forward type of person, but at the end of the day, I knew that that's kind of what was the problem in the landscaping, is that we didn't have that planning and that strategic development going on. So I did start with that. Now it's nowhere near what we're doing now, but when I did, there was a mindset of, hey, we put together a business plan. Hey, we put together, we had leases involved and whatnot. And there was a structure much, much better than there was with the fire department. And I'd say that's kind of where, I don't want to say a rocket ship, but that's kind of like where my personal growth really started then, when I knew I had to be more organized in order to not this, the same mistake basically happening again.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Those are the lessons learned, right? The organization is critical. Now, what's always interesting, and as I got to know you better, we went over to your gym, and I think this is really interesting about all gyms, right? If you have different service levels and different items in there, there's a lot of people involved in the gym, right? Not maybe so many as employees, but different coaches and different things. So that organization and having those people, that many people around you, that is a real big key to success. And here you are, right? You're a firefighter. I know not that then, but now you're a captain. You have more responsibility there. This is the other job, and surrounding yourself with these people. Talk a little bit about maybe the learning lessons and the evolution in that process, because like all gyms, right? No one's perfect. You hired, certain people that didn't work out and stuff like that. But as you've gone through that, of the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people, and what do you find to be the most important qualities and characteristics of the people that you seek to work with?
Sure. So you brought up a thing where you always tell me is that you're you have one hard hard like, and that you have to like the person in order to work with them. And and it's true though, that's how I think uh most of the people that work, or friends of mine that work with us even at this point, it's truly because we like them, or I like them. And it's I like to use the word now, culture fit, right? But at the end of the day, culture fit is also, personality traits, has to do with their communication skills, has to do with their happiness, has to do with the way they greet people, has to do with the way they treat people. So that's definitely was the main reason why I found my business partner, George Scoop Sanchez, who's been great with me. And we started as friends. We both had the passion. There was a hard like. There was things that we found in each other that, were good personal traits that we took into the business, and are like the staples that we've done it. And honestly, we keep finding all of our best friends, either through the gym, because it's a melting pot, and there's a lot of crazy people and fun people, and positive, negatives, a whole melting pot of people that come into the facility. And you get to kind of get to know people, because most people take their hair down, we call it, at the gym, and like they express themselves, right? They're complaining typically about what their day was. They're escaping their normal 9 to 5, and are coming here, and you get to learn. And that's when you personal train people, or you do training, they talk to you, they tell you about their business, they tell you about how their day was. So then you start to get to know people and like people. And then that's literally how we started developing more of our staff, and learn to grow from there. It's all built on those relationships.
Yeah, I've noticed as I worked out there, a lot of people that came in, they're working out. I noticed all of a sudden, their shirts change, right? And they're part of the staff, and kind of how that came about. And it was really smooth and very natural. And I'll give you so much credit. And I think it's really an offshoot of you and Scoobs, right? Is you really surround yourself with good people. Man, they're good people. You like to be around them. They greet you with a smile. That culture fit is so important, right? And I've seen that in many other small businesses. The previous gym I was at, it didn't work because the owner had a different mentality towards it, right? And it was a different kind of a me first mentality. And you really lead with what can I do, for the community and the group. And it's really, and it shows all the people. And then it really attracts the people that go there, the participants, right? The members, the membership. They're always so nice and fun to be around. And that's a really great quality.
Thank
So,
you, Steve.
yeah, I know one of your other big initiatives that we worked on, and another passion you've had. You have passion with working with youths, but also with underprivileged alike. And you guys worked really hard to set up your not-for-profit. I know, and this was not a overnight thing, right? It was many years, many trials and errors, and going through it. But I think a lot of people out there that have kind of a community-oriented, business like yours, that they want to do more, they want to give back, they want to create this not-for-profit. Talk a little bit about kind of what you guys have done with that not-for-profit, kind of how you set it up, and what your thought was it originally, and kind of what it's become now.
Yeah, so thanks. Definitely it really became from my training of youth, because I always wanted to be training youth athletes. And, of course, it's great to train kids that, parents are affluent enough to afford your services. But, a lot of the kids that either really need the training to get them to the next level typically do not have some of the funds that are required. So that's kind of how it developed. And every time I would go, outreach to groups, there was always a financial barrier going on a lot of times, with specifically with certain groups and some of the more athletic kids. And so we wanted to create this barrier, break this barrier and try to bring the kids in. And originally we thought it was going to be like no big deal, everybody does this. And then luckily I got people like yourself and others who helped and guided us along the way, and were able to like push us through. But it's been a 3-year process, maybe 4 now at this point even. And we're still learning a lot of the hard work. But because of the culture that we've created, because of the community, and because of the expansion that we've done, it's really started to take off, right? And I think the best thing that it does for us is it allows for us to have a bigger net that we're able to cast, right? So if somebody comes in, or if I get a phone call about any new group or anything, like, it's not just my financial decision that has to happen. We can literally just help people, because we want to help people. And that's a beautiful thing. Obviously they need to fit the needs and whatnot, but when I get a call from a public school who wants to come in and use the courts or is looking for training, I used to have to turn them away because it's $100 an hour or whatever the price point is. Now we can start working around those barriers, that are put there. And really it's the community that's allowed for that to happen. So it's kind of been like one hand feeds the other really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's really was fortunate. Once again, good people. I know you guys moved to your new facility, which is an extraordinary facility. And you have so many options and so many different opportunities and so many other businesses in there that coincide with what you're doing. And that's just a wonderful opportunity. I mean, you guys are really unique in that way, right? That, it's interesting that through the pandemic, right, when everything was going virtual and not in person, you guys blossomed, right? You grew more. You brought all these, once again, cultural. You brought all these cultural fit other businesses that kind of supported were ancillary to yours, to your space. So how has that journey, kind of been, and how that's, you bring all these different people to the space, and kind of what's your thoughts on that and these ancillary partners, or whatever you might call them, for the future of Adapt?
I mean, it's pivotal. That's like really been I think the biggest change for us. COVID obviously helped send it into motion. Again, that's another, like, one of those turning points where, okay, what's going on? You have to pivot, and it really forced us to really, again, think long term. And we always wanted, there was, again, barriers, right? Like, so, we have a client and they would say, oh, I can't do, a press because my doctor tells me I can't do it. And we're like, well, why is this? And there was always a barrier between the doctor and us. Or, people would come to us only for Tuesday's class because they like this one, but they were going to another group another day for yoga. Or, they wanted an LA Fitness membership because they had a basketball court, right? So we always saw, people really going to all these different things. And we're like, wouldn't it make sense to have one wellness hub that really can, bring all of these experts into all these different, in these little areas into one, right? So we're really good in the fitness space, but I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you about your shoulder internally. However, the doctor and I needed to work together to make how the treatment goes, because you can't just be in the doctor's world forever. Eventually you want to come live in my world so you can get back on the golf course or whatever it is. So the idea was to bring multiple experts together in one location, right? So by us not being the expert in the doctors, we found the doctors to come in. Us not being the expert with volleyball players, right? We partnered with the volleyball program because there's a lot of crossover. And the beauty of having that crossover is we created this hub. So now when people go to, you go to a mall, you go to shop. That's the one thing that's there. You can have fancy stores, cheap stores, basketball, sports stores, suits, right? But you're still collecting the whole hub. And that's exactly what we basically have created. And that's been the biggest thing, because when your sons want to come work out with me, but you wanted to go do something else for golf, or your wife wanted, treatment for her shoulder or whatever it is, there's one place you always come to, because you trust, and you like everything that's there. And it just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool model. It's a really cool model. So Scott, I really appreciate all this time. And let me ask you, kind of as you've gone through this journey and you've learned all these lessons, and, you've kissed all these frogs, and you made all these, correct, moves and everything. If you could go back to Scott of right when he was graduating high school, he was having that landscaping business, right? He was thinking about, what to do, and the firefighting that fits into it. If you could go back and talk to him and say, hey, listen, kid, here's something I've learned, that you wish you knew back then, and you wish that somebody had told you, what would that be? What would you tell younger Scott?
It's hard to have one thing. I mean, there's so many things, but I think the one that really would stand out to me is like, I wish I could remember this quote, but it's something along the lines of like, moving slowly, taking things slow will get you there faster at the end. And there's a special quote that I'm thinking, but instead of spinning my wheels and trying to do too many things and too fast and not enjoying the process or really thinking through a lot of processes, it's caused, more work in the long run. So I think being able to, slow it down, take it slow, and just keep moving forward, I think would be my main takeaway, because it goes in all avenues with planning, with hiring, with, signing leases, with, I mean, really anything with
Yeah.
all the items.
No, anything, and that's such a great point, Scott. And I love it. And I talk about it in my business and in my personal life. Any kind of decision made quickly is about 9 out of 10 times it's going to be the wrong decision, right? You haven't really put the time into it. You haven't let things come to fruition. You're just pushing something that's typically like an emotional or a charge, item, to try to just push it through and say, forget it. I don't have the time for this to deal with that. But just to take it slower, just to go through it and let things kind of unfold and see how they play out. That I couldn't agree with you more about. That's such a great word of advice to anybody who's looking out there to to do it and start their own business. And what I love about you is that a lot of people will come in and ask, well, when's a good time to start my own business, right? Maybe they're at a job they're not that happy with, or a different stage of life. Is I say, you don't necessarily have to quit the job that you're doing or start something totally new from the get-go. Start bit by bit, right? You gotta have that work ethic, like you have. You gotta fill in all the gaps, right? You can't want to go lounge on your couch, for 5 hours a day or anything like that. That's not going to matter. When you have that free time, go out there and work. Fall forward. You're going to screw up. Keep going. And so for anybody, when they're thinking about these ideas, just go do it. Just go do it, because get out there, because the quicker you are, the quicker you're going to make your mistakes, and the quicker you're going to get past them and go by it. So Scott, listen. I really appreciate all this time, and there's a big change coming in your life, right? Now someone else that you're going to want to spend your time with, and I think that's great that you have all this huge team around you. Are you anticipating anything a little different, or what might look a little different when the little Scotty comes about?
Well, yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for, for your words, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I'm now at this point, I can really say I'm ready, because I'm not, I know what I need to do, right? I just talked to you about all this planning and organization and all that. So at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to. So I'm already, every month I try to, I have a little list that I have kind of hidden of like, what can I wean off my plate? The problem is I seem to put like other things on top of it. So, I might be weaning 5, but I might have gotten 7, but that's a different problem. But yeah, I know that I need to really be strategic and like organize my time, because I'm going to have to give more time. I want to give more time to, my family at that point. So, something else has to move around a little bit.
Yeah, I know. And I love it, Scott, because you went and you did all this before the child came. I basically went out on my own about a little over 2 years before my son came. And listen, if you have children and you're out there and you want to go out and do it on your own, I strongly encourage that. But if you're thinking about having children, right, and you think this might be something you want to do it now. Go out there, get that stuff, get those experiences, and get those in place, so that when your kids come, you'll have the time, you'll have the systems in place to enjoy them. So if you're thinking about, you've just gotten together a relationship, whether, start your own business first or have your child first, right? I would probably recommend do your business first, and then the child will come into that, and maybe they'll raise another little entrepreneur just like you, right? When you learn your father and all, just work hard.
That's one thing that you shouldn't go slow in, is starting. That's the one time that is definitely worth just falling forward, is just start, right? Like that's you could always figure it out afterwards. But if you keep waiting to start, then 1 kid, 2 kids, life happens, and it just, makes it even more challenging. So I think
I love it. I got that. Don't, that's one thing not to go slow in, is start fast. Start fast, and then maybe move slow. I like it.
Yeah, start fast, move slow.
Start fast, move slow. Yeah, love it. All right, Scott, thanks for your time, buddy.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Steve.